Give sport a say.
Hello, my name is Yves Lostecque, and I have been for years the head of the sport unit in the European Commission, as well as for a couple of years the head of unit of Erasmus Mundus and sport in the agency. And now I retired 2 years ago, and I'm a TAFISA advisor.
Great. And could you briefly explain the role of the European Commission and its connection to sport?
This role is new since till 15 years ago. There was no competence for the EU in the field of sport, so this role can be considered as relatively new. And it's important to say also that it's an area where we cannot rule. So our role is mainly to encourage cooperation between sport organizations and member states, to finance projects, and also to organize a policy cooperation at the highest level, at the ministers' level, at the level of the president of the federations and the Olympic movement and other sport organizations.
Okay, and from your perspective, why does EU sport policy matter for local organizations, practitioners and citizens? And what should people working in sport for all know right now?
It matters because the local and regional levels are the privileged places to promote sports and to develop sport. And now the EU has a competence in this field, so we must use this level to promote sport and its values. And for instance, through the Erasmus Plus program, we have created possibilities for small organizations and for local and regional authorities to participate more easily.
And why does sport matter in EU policy?
Sport matters because we have discovered, or we are now aware, that sport is not only an entertainment. Now the EU is very aware of the potential of sport in terms of health, well-being, in terms also of creating a community, solidarity in the society, and also economically. Sport is now an area which counts in terms of business, finance and jobs. So all these dimensions make sport now very relevant for the EU.
And can sport also contribute to democratic participation in the EU, and how?
I think yes, because to tell the truth, sport, we must not use sport as a tool. We must promote sport, it's in specific values, but the values that sport is containing correspond to the values that the EU is promoting in terms of participation, democracy, equity, discrimination, fight against discrimination. That's why the cooperation between the EU and sport organizations can be very relevant and very pertinent to promote EU values and to promote civic participation.
What value do you see in Erasmus Plus projects and their impact across Europe?
First, the very fact that the Erasmus Plus program exists is good for sport, because simply this represents more budget, more money, more investment in a sector which is so important for the well-being, health and the development of our citizens. So we invest in sport, and this is good, and we have seen that over years we have investing more and more money. Compared to the first generation of program, we have doubled the budget dedicated to sport, simply because we see its impact. We see that we have promoted very good projects, we have encouraged participation and cooperation between different national organizations to do European projects, and we have tried to develop and to promote grassroots sport through EU funds. And for us, at EU level, the impact is measured regularly, and this impact was very positive in the field of sport.
Great. But during your time as head of the sport unit at the European Commission, what were some of the main challenges that you encountered?
I could say that I had the chance to be as the head of the sport unit in a golden period, because first we had this competence in the field of sport, which allowed us to do a lot of things. I had the support of high-level politicians with whom I was working in the same direction, and I arrived at the period where we had Erasmus money. So for me and for my team, it was easy to help sport be developed at EU level. One of my main challenges, I would say, would be to position ourselves as a partner to sport organization. We are not only a banker or an organization which is controlling everything or which is giving directions or orientation and guidelines on all subjects. I think during the 10 or 15 last years, the EU has become a real partner to develop projects from sport organizations, and also a partner of member states to develop sport policy at EU level.
Okay, interesting. And finally, what are your thoughts on the Give Sport a Say project and its contribution to strengthening dialogue around sport and EU policy?
I think we need this sort of projects, because the EU has from time to time be seen as too far from citizens, cut from realities. This was a reproach, in my view, a little bit fake, but this was a reproach which was made to us. I think this sort of project link our institutions and policy makers to citizens, and you use sport precisely to promote the voice of people, to transmit them, to make them heard, and you use sport in a positive way as a tool to do this, and this is why these sort of projects are needed and so useful for us.
Okay, thank you very much.
Give sport a say.